What's up, Tall Timbers, Super School? Today we're going to do a little bit of felling techniques. These are going to be my techniques, so take what you want and throw away whatever else is left over. So here we go. Today we've got this Douglas-fir. Back up a little bit. I've already set a line in, as you can see. So not too bad. Maybe 45, 50 foot. DBH is maybe, oh gosh, like 14, 16. So tall and narrow, little bean pole. And that gives us a lot of options as far as, what we're going to be able to do with it as far as cuts. I'd like to do a trigger since I am by myself today. But we're just going to leave a fat hinge, stack it with some wedges, and then I'm going to pull it over with the 5-to-1. So, all right, so first off, right, this is all about after the fact of doing your 360-degree walk around, making sure there's no electrical hazards, pedestrians getting into the way. But as you can see, I'm kind of out in the middle of the woods here. Not a whole lot going on, just some beautiful scenery and the birds chirping. The best way to go about a work day, really. But what we want to focus on, so we're going to start with, after we've done our initial hazard assessment, right? Checking the roots, making sure the roots are good, the root zone area is good. Checking around the trunk taper, that it's not buried after construction, because this is a somewhat newer home. Make sure we do have a good trunk taper, which we do. Make sure we don't have any cracking or anything heaving over off the side. And then from there, right, we're going to check the lean. And this is kind of where I want to begin. Is I like to do my leans 90 degrees from each other. So we're going to do one 90 degrees from the direction of fall. And then we're going to come off this way, the direction of fall, because we're going to lay this. The homeowner wants it right in this area right here. So I'm going to stand. I'm going to show you why we do not just one way, but we do a full 360, is getting into the lean of the tree. So I'll grab my handy dandy plumb bob that I left down here. These are pretty handy. It's a plumb bob that carpenter stuff use. It's a weighted end with a string. You can use the stick method as long as it's straight. You can use your axe, but just for visual, I think this is going to give us a little more accurate assessment of the gauge of the lean. So we'll do our 360 inspection. We check, make sure everything's good, but we're also checking the canopy, make sure we don't have any entanglement in the side. But from this angle, okay, so I'll line my string up here. She looks pretty straight up and down. Got a little bit of wobble there. Okay, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So they're straight up and down. The trunk looks pretty straight. I'll do my best while I move the camera here to point this up, keep it in line. Right, so it's, yep, I'm not doing a good job, but anyway, pretty much straight up and down on this end of it, okay? But why we do a 90 degree, if we come off to the side, because a lot of times, especially if we have multiple trees that we're cutting down during the day, we tend to kind of go lackadaisical with our assessment of doing our walk around our trees. We just walk up to things and start knocking stuff down. And this is a good reason why, we might come on it from one angle, but then the other side, you can see we've got quite the side lean towards the downhill. Okay, so that's lined up with my notch, or the middle of the tree. As you can see, the trunk kind of juts out to the left. Okay, so I'll try and hold it there. So we're plumb. And then I'm going to tilt the camera up. We've got quite a bit of a left lean there, as you can see. My hand in the way. Okay, so we got straight up and down from one side, but then a left lean from the other side. And what that's going to do, and why we want to check that, especially with the trunk taper on the side here, we'll use a stick to show you kind of what I mean. Okay, so that trunk taper off to the side, we don't have in the direction of fall a nice straight up and down trunk. And so there's this myth of when you cut a notch, the apex, right? So where the two notches meet, okay, we're doing a traditional or open face, whatever, but that apex on that side, if they say you want it level to the ground, and we don't want to do that. We want to be parallel to the trunk. So if our trunk has got a lean, which this one does, okay, this one's opposite, but actually, no, that's the right way. We want our notch not like this, which would be level. We want it perpendicular, okay, with the trunk of the tree. So it's going to be 90 degrees to the trunk is that apex of our notch, okay? And the reason for that is, and hopefully I've got this in video to demonstrate to you, okay? So if we did, right, so we want to fall it in that hole directly across from where we're standing. If I did just parallel to the ground, okay, so I'm not perpendicular with the trunk, I'm parallel with the ground, like level to the ground, okay? And we have a leaner, so this one we got a left lean, but I want that tip to hit that corner, okay? If I don't go perpendicular with the trunk of the tree, what's going to happen is that tip is going to land to the left, depending on the lean, left or right, of my intended direction. Even though if I sight that in, and I'll go over using your sights when we get to the chainsaw, even if I line the apex, you know, my gunning sights in the direction of fall, and it's perfect, those gunning sights, when it's level, are on this angle here, okay? So if I'm level, my bar's got 90 degrees, right? That's where I'm going to be aiming. If I were to make my back cut, okay, the tip of the tree, which is over here, isn't going to magically come off to that side, right? It's going to, and I'll use my hand for it, as it comes over, okay, see where that tip's at? It is way to the left over there. So if I really need my tree to land where I want it to go, I got to be perpendicular to the trunk tree, and this is why. So perpendicular, and then now instead of it just kind of laying flat over, I'm perpendicular to the trunk. That tip, and this is kind of extreme just for demonstration as far as leans. Obviously gravity will take over and we'll get drift, but this is just for practical demonstration reasons. Now if I follow the perpendicular to my lean, okay, so I'm with the lean of the tree, now watch where the tip goes as I come over the top of that, okay? So I'm 90 degrees or perpendicular to the trunk, and see where that tip landed, exactly where I want it to go. Okay, so with that, toss that over there. Today, obviously, part of our assessment is going to be the wind. You can do the little frame here again, right? So the breeze is coming up, and it is not in our favor, right? It is going that way, especially in the mountain ranges. Not so much in the urban environment, but the mountains, you'll get constant gusts. And I don't know if you can hear in the microphone or not, but it was calm about 2 minutes ago. And then the wind picked up. I had a little microburst come in, and then now it's calming back down. Pay attention to the weather and those leans and get used to how you can make your tree do what you want it to do. Because if I didn't set a line in this, and let's say I did have a little bit of lean in favor of that, but I had objects or something on the left side, okay? If I didn't have a line, or I wasn't just paying attention to things, I could have had everything lined up, and as that tree comes over, that gust of wind, right, could capture that, basically that giant top there is a big old wind sail. Okay, this top up here is a giant wind sail. As that tree comes over, right, it's going to drift off to the left. I mean, obviously depending on which way the wind blows. So if the wind's blowing this way, as that comes over, we're going to lose our holding wood, and the wind could push it off and have it drift left, or vice versa to the right. Or even if it's strong enough, it actually can set back onto your hinge. So weather is a huge component. And I always recommend, unless you're 100% confident that it's going to go the way you want it to go, definitely put a line in it. Good practice for the throw ball. Gives you some backup and a sense of urgency. And if something fails, like I just had one today, pounding a wedge and my wedge broke. So now I'm out of wedges. I can't lift the tree anymore. I end up having to install a line. And then in that kind of scenario, you want to have stuff already preset rather than a tree that's already got cut, trying to do something safely and install it. So it's better, better to be prepared than not prepared. Okay, so I already set up, as you can see, I set up the pull line there. And the trick, especially on these Douglas-firs or tiny limbs, redwood limbs are the same way, they're notorious. You want to be 2/3 the way up, okay, is where you want your line at. But I don't know if you can see, the limbs down here are not too bad, right? They look pretty stout. But as you get higher up, they're about that diameter right there. That one right there. The smaller one right there in frame. So see how they get smaller? And what'll happen is if you're not up against the trunk super tight, what'll happen is that line, as you put tension on it, will just break all the way down. Okay, so it could break all the way down. The tree can lean back on you. You can lose the pulling power and have the tree drift one way or the other. So you definitely want to secure the line as up against the trunk as possible and over a stout limb. And so what I did, because I know I'm going to be pulling this way, I threw in from this side. And what that did is it shot my throw ball up through that backside. So when it came down, when I pull my line, the line's going to come up the backside, up towards me, and then off to the side, give me a little more wrap around the tree and securing the rope a lot better. And let's see if I can get us a good angle of where my line's at. Maybe. No, I can't see it. There it is. I don't know if you can see it. We'll zoom in there. There it is. So up against the trunk. Okay. And then what I did is I added, so when I put up against the trunk, I tried to whip it around the branches around the side. And then this is a pro tip here, is when you tie off your running bowline, and I would recommend a running bowline because of the choking. I'm going to set my camera down here on this uneven terrain so I can point this out to you. There we go. If you notice the way that this is wrapped around. So my rope was on this side of the tree. It's down over that way, and then it comes back over. And now I choked off, right? I've got my choke pulling this way. If I would have went the other way, or I came in and I tied my bowline the other way, as this is tight, and right now I've got tension on it, as this tightens, this could actually, if it wasn't choked, it was flipped the other way, could slide over. And maybe I'll demonstrate that one day on how it slides over. But so the choke is pulling this way. If I would have, instead of going this way with the line, I went this way and tied off, I end up choking this way or pulling this way, which is the direction it wants to unwind. So as I take tension, I could lose a lot of my pulling ability, especially in the middle. If I'm making a cut in the middle of a cut, I can lose my pulling ability. As I got my team members, I'm pulling on it. I would not, instead of pulling the tree over, I'd be just drawing this off to the side. What that do too, you can loosen this up if it's a smoother bark, not so much on these rough bark trees where they got a lot of exfoliation, but a smoother bark like an aspen, eucalyptus, maybe a maple or something like that, that could slide over, loosening up the choke on it, and then that could slide up and cause issues down the road with your setup. So that's definitely a pro tip for that one. And then the second one is, right, so this is the hole we're going to put it in. And so as you see, it's not a very big hole, nor is it very long. And I'm 100% confident, I'll go over the line here, I can fit the tree in here. Right, that tree is definitely going to fit in my hole here. But my concern, especially, safety first, is if I'm going to be here or I've got team members, okay, in this area. Set the camera down. Right, so if I know, see, here comes the wind again. Right, so I know I want to pull this direction into our fall zone. I don't want my team member standing here with the 5-to-1 or fiddle blocks, with the anchor point here, because I'm definitely in the fall zone and I don't have that 1.5 times the distance to be able to escape from this area, right? I could run the line further back that way, but there's not a lot of good anchors. Then I'm dealing with the fence. My line of sight's not that good. So what I end up doing is just putting a little redirect in, okay? So there's the redirect. And so if I didn't do this, I'd be either pulling in this area or way off to the side, right, way over here. And that's just not ideal as far as communication visual line, because this foliage here is blocking being able to see this area. So what I did is I just made it lateral or parallel to the ground and set up an anchor point over here. Okay, so this also does a couple other things. One, obviously keeps me or my team members safe and out of the way of the tree that's falling. So this is the one coming down, okay, and you can really see the lean here. So I'm well out of, I'm probably 2 times the height now, distance from that tree, right? I already pre-tensioned the line, ran my 5-to-1 back out, and then as we zoom in here, went ahead, filled the bollard, filled it up like the directions say, and then ended up cleating it onto the post on the end there. So right now I'm using the Petzl spin and spin lock. Almost forgot the name there, with the rescue sender on the side, just for ease. Anything bigger than a 1/2 inch is not ideal for that device. So okay, so now the other thing is, obviously I'm out of the distance, but now instead of usually pull lines, right, if it was here, they would come up at an angle. And short people like me, all right, if that's the porter wrap, okay, that's the porter wrap, and then it's going up to the tree, right? I'd have to like and drag that up and then run the thing back down, cleat it, and then try and push that thing back up. I've got all the room in the world right now to just run this thing out, and then I get better pulling power behind it. I'm kind of pulling into the ground, which is going to give me more stability, so I'm able to give a really good tug onto this and pull that over. Okay, broke a branch. Yeah, okay. We don't want to pull too much because I don't want it to go. I want to be able to let her set. So, okay, so I have slack. You always want to tend that slack if you're using a 5-to-1 to assist the tree over. Because what will happen is, if, let's just say, something goes awry, okay, and the tree yanks up on this system, well, right now, this is the only thing that is keeping this slack from being tensioned. And this is not rated for shock absorbing or even that high loads, right? The working load for these is like 1,000 pounds. Okay, so I want to make sure always that I have it nice and tight and capture that. That way, if my system fails or it slips or the tree goes the wrong way, I get a big gust of wind and it pulls on it. It doesn't break my 5-to-1 and then cause a lot of slack and then a shock load on the system. So, okay, cool. All right, let's go put a notch in. That sounds like a plan. All right, next part, we're gonna build a notch. All right, so like I talked about earlier in the video, is my trunk of the tree kind of goes out like this, right? So from the 90-degree, right? So that's my direction of fall. We were off to the side, checked it, right? It looked straight up and down that way, but then we got behind it and looked at it. I've got a substantial lean off to the side downhill, which is usually the natural way, and a little bit of a back lean behind it, okay? So same principle like we talked about before. I don't want this would be level, right? I'll use this chainsaw, right? Normally, a lot of people talk like do it level to the ground, and that's like we talked about before. That's going to cause, especially on something where the lean is left or right, your tip is going to end up, or the tree is going to end up in a direction that you don't want it to be. So we want to make our notch perpendicular to the trunk of the tree. So the bar is going to be 90 degrees to the center of gravity of the trunk here. Okay. So I'm going to talk through my my technique. A lot of foresters, they've got their own techniques, stuff like that. So really from here, I say give it a good shot, give it a good try, maybe just practice it a little bit. As you'll see, as I'll point out here, there are some really good reasons to build your notch this way. So I'll just go ahead and go into them. So one is, if I'm falling multiple trees a day, I want to conserve my energy, right? Because this is not light, this is heavy. Our job is difficult, the terrain is difficult, managing the material and getting it out is difficult. So if I can be as efficient as possible with my movements, that's going to help prolong my day and give me more energy at the end of the day. And at the end of the day is usually when a majority of the accidents happen, especially on danger day, which is the Mondays and Fridays, right? So as you know, or have heard, when you are fatigued, your cognitive ability is impaired. You're not thinking straight. You just want to get stuff done. You're tired. You start cutting shortcuts. Okay. You start, like we talked about in the beginning of the video, right? Instead of doing a full 360 and setting up your fall zone and checking the lean, you just came on it from downhill like, oh yeah, she's straight up and down, slap a notch in, and you realize, oh crap, this ain't going to work. It's actually going that way. And I really need to do something different. And you've already made your cuts, and now you've got to install a throw line and put a pull line in or mitigate any hazards. I would rather be prepared and have that stuff set up and need it than need it not have it, kind of thing. So I want to conserve energy. So the way we can do that, it might seem minuscule at the moment right now. These little techniques I'm going to go into. But if you compound that throughout the day, and I'm doing a lot of excessive movements throughout the day, I will get fatigued quicker. And those little movements will add up. It's like everybody can lift a 5-pound dumbbell, but you lift that 5-pound dumbbell 100 times, you start to get tired, right? So if I only have to lift it 50 times, I'm going to have way more energy at the end of the day than if I had to lift it 100 times. Okay, that's the same thing with my movement. So what I like to do is I like to stand 90 degrees, okay, to the direction of fall. Okay, depending on, after we've done our inspection, looking for where my holding wood's going to be, cat faces, right? We want to do full 360, looking for any kind of issues, decay. nails, concrete, homeowner special stuff. I'm gonna, this is after that, right? I'm gonna stand in 90 degrees, and then I'm gonna lean up against the tree. Okay, so I'm using my power zone. I'm comfortable. I mean, I could stand like this all day long. Boss might get mad, but I can stand like this all day long and not get fatigued. Okay, instead of standing like this, I'm not supported, and I'm not leaning. I'm not comfortable. Okay, this other lean this helps me kind of gauge the lean of the tree, right? So if it was leaning the other way, I'd be kind of like this on it. If it was straight up and down, I'd be like this, but this one's got that lean. So what that does is it's going to help me with lining up my chainsaw. So I am 90 degrees or perpendicular, or not perpendicular, but parallel, perpendicular. I think that's right, perpendicular to the tree, and it's going to help me build my notch. So I'm going to start here, and for the open face and traditional, I'm going to do my top cut first. Okay. The reason I do that, one is it's easy for me to use my sights, and I can lean up against a tree and use my felling sights, okay, or my gunning sights. And that's going to give me a really good weight. I can lean up, and I can hold this all day long. I'm comfortable. I'm leaning with the tree. I can look up, right, double check where I want to put it, where the hole is that I want to put it into, okay. And if I need to move over or change things, it's perfect. And then I'm holding it, okay, and I've got my 45 or 70 degrees if you want to do an open face, depending on how you like to do them. Okay, but I'm going to do a traditional on this one. What that's going to do, one is, I think it's easier to do the top cut first, because when I get done, as you'll see when I start doing it, is I can roll out. This is going to be easy to line up to the apex of the notch. What I can do now is I can look down my kerf from my top cut, and as I roll this over, if I'm looking on that back end, I can see the chain. As I'm cutting over, I'm going to be able to see if I'm going to get bypassed or not, and I can watch until it lines up with my kerf and I stop cutting. All right, doing it this way really helps avoid getting any kind of bypass and lining up with that back side. So, okay, so I start off with this one. I'm parallel with, or perpendicular, parallel, perpendicular, perpendicular. Sorry to confuse it. With the tree, lined up in the direction of fall, cut, roll over, roll that in. Okay, you see how little bit of movements I'm doing? I did not move at all, hardly. Because a lot of guys will come in and they're like this, they're cut, and then they're looking, and then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do this and look over here. Okay, all of those movements were wasted, completely wasted. One is they were unnecessary, because going over there and looking, I mean, really doesn't accomplish anything. Like, okay, cool, your cut is over there. It doesn't really give you anything. But what it does is, moving from your position, you're losing that muscle memory. So it's like playing a guitar, right? You know where the frets are, or the bass, or whatever, drums. As you set up your drum set correctly, or your guitar, right, you learn where the frets are, where each key is. You could play, and that's why I like guitarists that are good, right? They can play with their eyes closed, or they can sing and do all that crazy stuff because of that muscle memory. So if I stay in one spot and I get used to one spot consistently, and I'm not moving a lot, that muscle memory is going to help me line up the hardest part of the cut, which is going to be that backside. And the more consistent I am, the more likely I'm going to be able to line up that backside as well. Okay, so from here though, what I'm going to do, so after I build my notch, I can come down from here. I'll roll over. We got a little bit of debris in this back way. And then I'm going to line up, and I'll look down my bar. Okay, I'm not running it yet. And I can line my bar up with the apex of my notch. And that's really going to give me, line that up so I'm not too crooked, I'm not crisscross on the backside, I'm not too high, I'm not too low, right? I'm where I need to be. So traditional, right, the the rule is to be just about an inch above your holding wood. With the open face, you want to line it up, and with the Humboldt, you want to line it up as well. Okay, so the only notch that you're going to be a little above is going to be the traditional notch. All right. Okay, so that's kind of like, that's my technique. If you want to stay with your gunning, you know, the bottoms cut first, you know, and line that up, and you're really good at not, right, so you're lining up this one first and you're sighting it in. To me, and you're really good at line up, that's fine. But for me, coming back over and lining this, because I have a lot of variables here of this way and this way, that if I'm not really good at lining that back up, I'm going to bypass or miss on that backside. And always remember, once you cut it, right, you cut into this wood, you can't put that wood back. You're committed. It's go time. So be sure that, you know, when you line the saw up and you're on there, that it's 100% lined up and where you want to be. Because, you know, like I said, once you cut it, you can't put it back. All right. Obviously, you know, we want to talk about our escape route. You always want to go uphill, 45-degree from the direction of fall. So I am falling towards you. So my escape route is going to be back that way. I'm not going to stand here and be like, oh, cool. But for the purpose of this video, I'm actually going to try, and I think I can do it. I'm going to build my notch, put a back cut in, set wedges, give them a little bit of a kick, and then we're going to walk over, and I'm just going to pull the tree over and demonstrate the control that we would have by setting up the notch and the back cut perfectly, and how I'm able to egress out of the site and be safer and be more in control of what this tree is doing. So I could, in this case, we could do a trigger cut, but because, and that's a pretty difficult cut to perfect. There's a lot of things that go wrong. Like I said, once you cut it, you can't put it back. So I have a small diameter here. And so if I do my notch correctly, right, 20% the diameter of the tree, my apex is going to end up here. So just for the sake of the video, okay, so 20%, my notch is going to end up, right, the apex is going to end up right here. So to build my trigger cut, I want 10%, which is going to be, it looks like 1.5 inches right there. So now that's where I want my hinge, and all I have left to work with is this back little bit. So my bar, right, see how thick this thing is? Okay. So do that again. So right there's about 20%. Yeah, that's about where I want it, the diameter. Okay, 10% from there. Okay, and then this is my bar when I bore in for the bore cut. See how very narrow the back end is? And so when I bore cut, if I'm not straight on and I get a little bit drift one way or the other, I could potentially cut wood I don't want to cut. So I really shy away from doing a trigger cut when I'm smaller diameter trees, just because of the difficulty of them. So anyway, that could be a later video someday. So, okay. All right. So I'll put the camera up off to the side. And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to be down like this because I want it low to get into some more wood and a little more comfortable here. So I'm going to build my notch, put in the direction of fall. I'll have the camera on this side. I'm going to go ahead and put my back cut in. I'll set my wedges, which I have here and ready. And then we'll walk up out of the fall zone and go to the 5-to-1 and then pull this thing over. Okay. All right, here we go. Put this. There you go. I think that's a good spot. Okay, we'll zoom in a little bit. Get you my good side. Okay, all right. Well, safety first, obviously, right? Chaps, hearing protection, safety glasses, work protection, brakes on. And always remember, we're not doing this or this. Fully wrapped, rolling the wrist all the time. And if I come off the side, I'm not doing this, right? Fully wrapped. Same with the thumb on the trigger, not like this, fully wrapped. It's always, always important to do it, okay? All right, foul. You're probably wondering, well, Kevin, if you've got the rope in it, why are you pounding wedges? Well, I'm going to tell you that. That's a good question. Okay. So I did leave a little bit more hinge than I wanted to. Or I mean, sorry, the 10%. I did want to leave that. Scratch that. I did want to leave it. The reason for that on this side is, right, our lean is that way. So the wood here is holding on, keeping that from, right, drifting that way, because the tree wants to fall that way. It wants to go the opposite way I want to go, because I want to go uphill over here. Well, kind of uphill. And then I knew, because I'm by myself, right, I'm going to want a 5-to-1 to help assist this. Knowing the thickness of holding wood and what I can leave and knowing what I can pull over, and it's all species dependent, will dictate on how much I want to leave. And so I've falled Douglas-firs before. Their holding wood is, it's okay. It does hold, but it's not as good as like a ponderosa or even a spruce tree. I would prefer a spruce tree over this. So anyway, so I got a little bit bigger holding wood here. And back to the question, why did I use wedges? Well, as you saw earlier before, right, when I was pulling, we had a limb break. Sometimes that's going to cause a sag. And what we don't want is for this to close or to set back, because what that could do is put a lot of tension on this backside and start snapping our holding wood and potentially cause it to go the way we don't want it to go. Okay, so this is going to keep, even with, remember we had the wind pushing too. This is going to keep this. If they weren't here, this would want to close and open, but here it's keeping that from happening. So, all right, let's go to the 5-to-1. My beautiful work truck. Best company in the world. That's right, the world. Oh, my gear. Yeah, show that off a little bit. Okay, so put you in a good spot. Hopefully, I'll get you a good angle here. Zoom out a bit. Okay, so there's our tree. I don't know if you can see, but that's a good shot of the notch. What I meant by being right perpendicular. Get my finger in there, right there, perpendicular to the trunk of the tree. All right. All right, here we go. And when we're pulling, right, for the sake of like, we don't want to be yanking and yanking and yanking it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because we're going to snap off that holding wood or cause it go back and close and put more tension on it. So every single time we're pulling the tree, we want it nice and smooth, slow and steady. Okay, awesome. We're getting a really good pull on it. And here we go. Just walk away. Right in the hole. Won't get much better than that. Well, maybe. That's pretty good though. All right, so I'm out of breath, man. I'm getting old. Okay, so see, tip of the tree, right there. If myself or the guys were just anchored off of this, right, I'm definitely in a danger zone, so we don't want to do that. Okay. Tree's gone. It's right where we want it to be, right in the hole. And all right, as you can see, 20% depth in the notch. I did have a lot of holding wood because we had, like we talked about before, we had a significant back lead, and I'm solo. I mean, the homeowner's there. And I wanted to pull it over just to demonstrate control. And using a 5-to-1, if you don't have the ability to set a trigger cut. And actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to put the bar so you guys can see what I was talking about as far as the thickness of the bar being an issue with being able to set that trigger, right, that bore cut on the trigger. All right, I'm cameraman today too, so thanks for bearing with me. All right. Okay, so like I said, right, so I was able to perpendicular with the tree, came in, I rolled over. I've got a little bit, but this was, I mean, that's nothing right there. I was able to come back over, and all of those little micro movements, okay, I mean, I can do that all day long if I'm dropping a whole bunch of trees, but you imagine if I'm like this, and I'm like this, and I'm looking at it, and I'm walking over here. You do that 50, 60 times a day, you're going to run out of energy. So, okay, so back to the bore cut, right? So I made my traditional. Now, once the notch is cleared, okay, you've pulled it, this is where it gets difficult. So you would come in with the trigger, right? I want to set my hinge, and then I like to come in this way, away from the apex. That way I'm not boring this way and accidentally cutting some of the holding wood on that back side. And like I've been saying, once you cut it, you can't put it back. So I would come in like this, right? So boring in. As you can see, if I'm not careful, either I take too much on my holding wood, which is what I need, or I end up coming up backing out, right? It just makes for a tough situation when I could just, on these smaller trees, leave a decent amount of hinge, knowing my species and what I can get away with, even in the windy weather, and have that control. So really, what I'm, with this, when you're falling trees, don't just knock them down and start bucking them up, but like really think through, do like a post analysis of your job, and think through, why did it do that? What happened there? What did I do good? What did I do bad? What could I have done better? Reevaluate that, and then how did this species respond, right? This Douglas-fir responded pretty well. Sometimes you'll have, on larger ones, you'll have a lot of heart rot, so you can run into those kind of issues. With the lean, how did it land? Did it land the direction I wanted to? Was I tip over? And then what was the relationship to my apex, to the direction of fall? Really think through the species and the cut you made and the back cut and how you pulled and how hard you were pulling, and put that in your toolbox for later, for the next ones, eventually it'll become this second nature, this feel of where you can do it naturally and have that intuition of, hey, something doesn't feel right. And the second that's there, stop. Right? If you get tunnel vision or you get that uneasy feeling, stop cutting, reevaluate the situation, and listen to that subconscious of yours of like, hey, this something's not right. I need to reanalyze. If you don't feel like it, right? The tree doesn't have to get cut today. Right? It can get cut tomorrow. We can cut a couple days from now. Yeah, listen to that intuition on there. So, okay. So hopefully you've learned something, and that's Tall Timber Super School Felling 101. Catch you on the next one. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I stuck it in the hole with that nasty lean, weird awkwardness, but just knowing the techniques, where I need to put it, and how to make the wood do and the tree do what I want it to do, comes with practice.